So before we did the podcast, Kevin and I actually were going to do a tech-based web show. We filmed the first episode for it only to realize it had some issues. And then one thing led to another. We ended up with the podcast. But that first episode, we were actually going to debate our personal quivers and talk about what makes a good quiver and whatnot. So in keeping with one project that failed, we're going to take it to one that's probably going to be a success. I don't know. You guys leave us a comment and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
But we're gonna debate our personal quivers right now and stuff like that. So here we go. This is Kevin and Avran debating. This is Quivers.
Yeah.
So I'm in the firm belief that having a quiver, you shouldn't have much overlap in there, and it's okay to have specialized equipment for certain things and whatnot like that. A lot of people will try to tell you when you have a quiver that everything should kind of overlap and whatnot, but I don't believe in that. So Kevin, what can you say about quivers?
So for the most part, I'm very much on that page that if you've got, if you've got stuff that overlaps too much, then it just, well, why? Why do you have that? Why do you have two boards that basically do the exact same thing? On the other hand, I'm almost guilty of doing that at this point, because I've started to, with just kind of a shift in my entire riding style more towards carving and free riding and riding groomers more than anything else. I've got a lot of boards that I just rip carves on, and so it's kind of shifted a little bit for me, and I've kind of just started to treat it more as the personalities of the board and not necessarily what they're really specifically designed for, because I have probably 4 boards in my quiver at this point that are technically just POW decks and aren't very drastically different from each other, but they do ride differently and they have different personalities, so it kind of depends on the mood that I'm in almost as far as what I grab. And normally I would say, I used to say even just 6 months ago that quiver maybe max 5-6 boards, and I think I'm running like 9 right now.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
And you know what my life is like, where
Right.
it's just I've got at any point there's 40 something to 100 snowboards just sitting around inside the house.
Yeah.
Doing that, that's more than I have in my personal quiver right now. I mean, granted, mine is going to expand, I think, for this next year just a little bit, because there are certain boards that I feel will fill certain voids for certain days and styles of riding. But right now, we're going to talk about what's in our quivers. So, Kevin, I'm going to let you lead into this one.
Okay. So what I've got running right now is a Lago Open Road. I've got a Ride Alter Ego, an Arbor Clovis, a Flow Enigma. That's one of the ones for next year. I have a Burton Custom Kilroy coming to me that I've got a day on. It was super fun. A Ride Helix, which I know we'll talk about that in a second.
Fuck that thing.
The Arbor Zygote, the Z-Twin, and a Niche Ether. And then I've got a couple others that I don't really ride that much. They're more kind of like backup boards really at this point. They're not really part of my active quiver. And then kind of the last one that I just didn't really get a day on, but I do actually ride that board is I've got a little bit older Burton Fish that I've got that I ride sometimes.
Is that the cambered fish?
Yeah, it's the 2013 with the fish scale.
Okay.
Bottom graphic.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, see, my quiver's a little different than Kevin's. So, to break it down, I've got a 144 Cool Bean, which I'm probably going to get rid of because the Rosno Sushi is just better, in my opinion. But, so I've got that. So I've got a 144 Cool Bean. I've got a 154 Interior Plane Project Honolulu twin tip, elongated. It's like an old unink shape, basically, in the tip.
Yeah.
I really love that elongated tip, and it's camber. It's an aggressive cambered board. I've also got a sample version of that for next year's model that's about 20% softer, which is where I always wanted mine to break in, and it never did for some reason, even after about 45, 50 days on it, so it should have been broken in. And then I've got a 156 Amplid Pillow Talk Powder Twin Freestyle, but I ride that thing just about anywhere. It's probably one of my favorite boards. I will legitimately cry when that thing dies because I don't know if I'll be able to get another one in the U.S. Those guys great company. They were easy to work with. I think it's just shipping logistics are kind of an issue with it. But that board, so I've got that one in the lineup. I've got a 163 Xavier De La Rue split board. Did not get much split boarding in this year, just time constraints and whatnot. And that's really what I'm running right now for decks, for me personally. I know there's some stuff I'm going to add next year. I'm probably picking up a 157 Dinosaurs Will Die Brewster. The shape on that thing with the side cut and flex pattern is phenomenal. And I might pick up a 153 Rome Blackjack because there's days I just want to ride a fucking skateboard around the mountain and bash into rocks and shit. And that's the board I'm going to do it on. But by and large, my Quiver, like you look at it, it's very, everything kind of has its specific place. I do need a directional powder board. That's not a split board, obviously, and not a cool bean, not like one of those short and stubbies. Oh, I also forgot, I do have a 152 Marhar Lumberjack as well, but I helped design that board, so of course I'm going to fucking have one. And right now my friend Kyle's actually been riding that, so I think maybe I rode it one day this year, maybe. Yeah. So it's kind of more just there for the sake of saying, hey, well, I kind of helped design this, so sure. So do it. But I'm looking for that good, solid, directional freeride POW carving board thing. Maybe a Moss Snow Stick will find its way into my Quiver, or one of these other brands, or a Snowfisk or something like that, because they do have some unique stuff. But by and large, my Quiver is drastically smaller. The only thing that's pretty consistent across my Quiver is my binding set, which is a pair of K2 Indies that I gutted some formula pieces off of to make them a formula, like an old formula without the canting in. That's the one thing that carries over in my Quiver.
Yeah, but I don't have that at all. I don't have a single pair of the same bindings on any of my decks right now.
Yeah, so
which I'm the binder reviewer, so I should have that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you review the bindings, but let's talk about some of the boards in your Quiver. You know how I feel about the Helix.
Sure do. And while I very much enjoy that board, I very much understand the downfall of that board, and that's that I didn't really start enjoying that board till about 25 days in. It takes a pretty long time to get it broken into a point where it rides well. Like when I first got on it, I didn't ride it very much because I felt like the heel side contact points were just almost too aggressive and they would chatter out, and I didn't feel like I could keep the edge in. And it took a long time for basically the core to break in before I could actually hold on to that edge. And now that I can, it rips and it's super fun. But I mean, even if you're riding 100 days a year, do you really want to spend a quarter of your season breaking a board in?
No.
Like, I'm in a lucky enough situation where I do ride usually about 100 days a year, and I've got a bunch of other boards I can rotate through.
Yeah.
So I was able to break it in over a longer period of time. It basically took me the full season to break it in. And now, this season, because I got it last year, I do really like it. But, I mean, you shouldn't have to take 25 days to break it.
No board should take that long. And every time I've ridden that board, I mean, like the side cut, when you're on edge, you can really rip it, but to engage it, the thing is just a slug. And I've always looked at it as a asymmetrical Machete GT, which, fuck that board too. Mm-hmm. You hear it, yeah. I'm talking to you, Jim at Ride. Fuck that thing. Yeah. You can quote me on that in the fucking catalog for next year. Yeah, 2019.
2019.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so everyone knows, pick up a Ride catalog for the 2018 and read the description on the Machete GT. It's great. You'll catch the subtle references to me. But, yeah, I think that board is kind of craptacular in all honesty. I don't think it's that great of a board. And, I mean, the fact that you had to wait that long to get it to where it is, and I just fuck that thing.
It was one of those boards that I only kept it around because of the crazy shape, and I've kind of gotten to a point now where I just like to have that stuff. Whether or not I ride it or not, I'm in the fortunate situation where it's not very hard for me to get gear, and I do my best to make sure that if I take something, it's not going to be taking something from someone else. But when people offer me stuff and it's not going to hurt someone else, I'm going to take it.
Kevin's a board hoarder.
I'm a board hoarder, definitely at this point, but I collect weird shapes. I've got like 2 decks in my entire, like, everything that I own right now, they're just normal styles.
Right,
Like,
right.
I collect weird shapes now, and that's one of them. That's the reason I kept it around for the longest time. If I wasn't trying to keep it around because of the crazy shape, because I know that at some point I'm gonna be like, I wish I still had one of those.
Right.
Then I would have gotten rid of it, and I wouldn't have gotten to a point where I do like it, because it does take just basically too long to break in.
But so from your Helix, you go to your Z Twin.
Yeah.
Which once again is another weird shape.
Right.
But you rode 4 hours in the park this year, Kevin.
I know. That's why, like the Z Twin I take out on days where I'm just cruising, danking around, like riding with people I know I'm going to be riding a little bit slower with. That's why that's still on my line, and the fact that and I've got the year one of it, so I've got the limited release, I've got a board hoarder, as we've already discussed.
Yes,
so
we know.
it's a little bit more of a rarity, so I'm going to keep that one. And I do ride it. I do actually ride that one, probably more than any of the other normal-ish style snowboards.
No,
like
I
anything that's like not my
I thought your
powerhouse.
Aether was the one you rode the most.
That's as of last year it was. This year I haven't been on it too much. I've been riding, partly because my entire style of way I snowboard has changed so much. I've been on my, the board I've probably been riding most is the Quivers and the Alter Ego. That's what I've been on most of this year.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to go into next. That Alter Ego. I actually like that board from Ride. It's a berserker with a split tail, in my opinion.
Pretty much.
And the concept of being able to unclip the tail and you get more float and more play in the tail. That's what I like about that board. But the problem is, I think people look at that thing and have no clue how to fucking ride it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what it is. And the reason I kind of like it is the berserker is a phenomenal snowboard, and I think it's maybe even a little underappreciated for what it really is and what it's capable of. The thing I like about the Ego is when you unclip that tail, it allows you to, depending on where you're putting your body position, you can actually tighten up your side cut on it.
Yeah.
As you're riding it, because that tail's so much easier to flex, but it doesn't let go because they run the carbon through the sidewall. So you still have a plenty of grip out of that back contact point, but you can shorten up your side cut radius because of how much further you can flex that tail. So it's a phenomenal carver for me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of those things where I see that's how that fits in your line. But then you go from, you got your Helix, then you got your Z Twin, then you got your Aether, then you got your Alter Ego, your Clovis, which, I mean, I've ridden. It's a non-asymmetrical twin, and that board is fun. It's got a lot of pop into it. You can really, it's more versatile than it looks with its shape.
Definitely.
Does suck ride and switch and powder with that thing a little bit, but not bad. I've ridden worse. I mean,
sure.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
But you look at that, but you go into there. But do you think that any of those completely overlap what you have going on?
Definitely. I mean, the Ego's bigger than the Open Road, but they're very similar boards. Similar nose shape, basically the same camber profile. They both carve really well, just a bit of a size difference.
See, I feel like the Open Road is softer than the Ego.
It is definitely softer, but as far as the type of rider that you would normally put that on, you're going to be looking, like the same type of rider might be looking at both of those. Because realistically, I almost got, so I have a 59 in the Ego, and I almost got the 55. And part of the reason I ended up doing the 59 is because I didn't want quite that much overlap with the Open Road. So, yeah, I mean, I have overlap, but the personalities of those boards are different. The Ego is more your laid back, charge it, go fast, carve hard.
Well, I feel like having the Ego would be like I'm going down to Wolf Creek and it's a 38-inch day, whereas the Open Road would be like I'm going to Copper and it's 6-inch day.
Yeah, definitely. And the Open Road's easier in the trees for sure because it's shorter and it's softer, so it's easier to manipulate through the trees. To be completely honest, the Wolf Creek board I have is my fish for sure. It's a 160. Like that's what I'm taking to low angle for sure. The Ego is that maybe what I'd grab for.
We need to go back.
On a POW day.
Nah, well we got to go back. Like low angle POW, that would be late season Wolf Creek.
Well,
early season Wolf Creek is when I'm talking when the goods are actually good.
Fair enough.
Be but yeah. No, I hear you on that. It's just it's funny to see how many POW shapes you have. Yeah, actually, realistically.
Because then on top of all those, then I also have now an Enigma.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really have a unique spot in my lineup either. Like, it's got a bit of a unique shape, but, I mean, in practice, it's not drastically different from the rest of the stuff that I have. But
right.
it's it's something that I really enjoy. I've always enjoyed Flow's side cuts. I think they have some of the best side cuts out there, and it's camber.
Yeah,
and it's kind of hard to find full on pow shapes in camber. It's getting way easier now because people are finally realizing that if you give a board a big enough nose and enough taper and a short enough tail, it's going to float no matter what camber profile you put on.
this is true.
But yeah, I don't really have strong justifications for where my quiver keeps growing. I ride boards I like, and if they ride different enough from the stuff that I already have, then I'm gonna keep it and I'm gonna ride it.
Well, the one thing that I noticed though is you don't have a short, fat Powerboard.
Right, and that's been part of a happenstance of circumstance where I just haven't really happened upon one that I really felt like I needed. That's definitely on my agenda for next year, is to find one I really like. The Jones Storm Chaser is high on my list for something like that. It just has that personality that I'm really looking for out of a short fat.
But it's not even that short.
No, well, the 47 is what I'd be looking at.
Oh, okay.
For me, that's short now, because now I ride 57s and 59s.
True.
I'm riding way bigger boards than I ever have. I mean, my biggest board 4 years ago was a 52.
Yeah.
So
Exactly, to see that transfer
Yeah.
into that. But I've ridden the Storm Chaser, and that's such a specialized deck, and in Colorado, I just don't think it fits the needs. Like, I feel the Mind Expander out of the Jones lineup.
yeah, and I haven't ridden that yet, and that's one I want to get on. That's what our rep out here keeps telling me. I keep saying, I think I might want a Storm Chaser. She goes, that's because you haven't ridden a Mind Expander yet. So we'll see, and maybe that's more what I gear towards. And the only thing about doing that, though, is then I don't feel like I'm getting the short fat in my line at that point. So
Exactly.
I might go somewhere else at that point. I have had a Derby. I have had one of those. So I have had a short fat in my lineup, and I've ridden almost all of them that are out there now. I don't know. I just haven't quite landed on it. I've had other priorities, I guess.
Clearly. No, clearly. Like, I completely understand. I mean, part of the reason that my quiver is actually so small is because I do so many fucking product reviews. I mean, just so everyone catches a frame of reference, Kevin and I lived together, and the year that we lived together, how many boards did I have in our living room?
At one point, I think we had about 100, probably.
Yeah.
100 different snowboards.
100 different snowboards. I want that just to sink into people. This isn't done over a whole season. This is done from the end of January till about May 15th that I ride all this stuff. So in that time frame, I have a lot of time to ride all these different unique shapes and stuff. So
I think that's a lot of what also comes down to it is I do binding reviews. You have to put bindings on top of snowboards, whereas you're doing board reviews. And while I have a bunch of different bindings on all my setups, so I don't have to pull bindings off and move them around all that much. Plus, I think certain personalities of boards match up with certain personalities of bindings. But I have my couple that I do ride for the binding reviews for the most part. I've got probably 3 or 4 that I rotate through, just depending on what I feel like I want to put those bindings on to see what they can do.
Right.
But I mean, that's it. Like, you ride boards. It doesn't make sense for you to have a ton of boards because you're not going to get to ride them all. Whereas because I'm on bindings, I can have a ton of different boards because I have to put the bindings on boards.
Yeah, there was one year I legitimately rode my personal board 18 days.
Yeah.
I was writing samples and test products and stuff for other companies and then product review season. So, you get that, but you've never ridden the Pillow Talk. I know that
Right.
I have that, which I should get you on that because that's a unique one. You have ridden the Lumberjack though.
Yeah.
And with your foot being so small, it was a little different, I think, for you versus me with a size 10 and doing that. But that board does overlap the Pillow Talk. I know that it's a smaller shape. It does have a different tip shape, like where the Pillow Talk has more of a spatula tip, where you can be sluggish with your pow butters and really do it, and it won't hook. The Lumberjack is more abrupt, and you can lean into it better. I mean, I designed that thing around riding Breckenridge and hitting log jibs, which is funny. Since I'm banned for life. But needless to say, I did ride this upcoming season's Lumberjack, which has a few tweaks to it at Copper, and hit some log jibs over there. And I can feel the difference between the two boards. And I prefer the older one just because the tip shape is a little different and the flex pattern. But you look at that, and you've also never ridden the Interior Plane Project boards.
Right, the Honolulu and the Haro.
Honolulu, Haro, and then they've got the new Odessa for this year coming out too, which is their wider one for the big hoofed guys. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I bought that Honolulu because I was coming back from a knee injury and I wanted something stiff with camber to really push me, and the goddamn thing never broke in.
Yeah.
And I gained 20-something pounds, and that thing still hasn't broken in. So I'm happy that I've got the sample one that's a little softer because that's going to be more jibby for me, but having camber in my life. But I've come to the realization I actually like reverse camber in my boards.
And I've kind of gone the opposite. I rode either flat. I rode a lot of flat, and then I started riding a lot of rocker. And I'm trying to remember what board really switched it over for me. I don't really know. But started riding camber again. Maybe it was a blackout. I got a blackout probably about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And started really liking the amount of power I could get out of the deck. And now the ether is the only thing I've got that is rocker dominant. Everything else I have is camber dominant.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like, and I mean, I've got the Cool Bean, and I kind of just wanted a little fat surfboard, and that's what I've got. And, I ride that thing way more on slush days than I do pow days anymore. I think I've maybe gotten 5-6 pow days on mine, but spring slush days, I probably got like 20-something on it with that, and doing that. But, my quiver is it's just fucked. I've come to the conclusion my quiver doesn't really show up until the end of January, and then every day it's just something different. And I try to ride based on what the conditions are that I'm going to ride. I mean, yesterday I rode a 147 Rome buckshot with camber. I mean, it was like riding a fucking skateboard. I could pop off anything, but it's a 147 and I'm 188 pounds, so I mean,
bit small.
Well, yes and no. I rode the 51 in it last year and I didn't like it. This 47 I actually liked more. So maybe I'm just getting to that point where I'm just going to become that old guy that rides small micro boards. Maybe see me out there on a Moro lunch tray or
Rousey Mini.
Yeah. Oh, God. If they bring that back. Looking at you, Tom Liebsack, Lovesack, whatever your name is over there. Bring back the Rousey Mini. But no, I'm probably going to get rid of my K2 Cool Bean and go to a Sushi because it's more playful torsionally. It reminds me, it's somewhere between a Cool Bean and a War Pig from Ride. So it's in there, but it's that short, fat, directional Powerboard and stuff like that. But, I mean, when I look at my quiver compared to yours, you look at it, and I mean, but it's telling of, like, the different riding styles. I mean, you grew up in Colorado. Yeah. With soft snow. I grew up riding fucking boilerplate sheet ice. Like, the last few mornings when everyone's like, oh, it's icy and firm, and I'm just over here like, yeah, this is great. Yeah. Just don't fall.
Right, yeah. It's fast.
It's fast. Very scary fast, but, you go out there and scare yourself a little bit and have fun with it. But the whole point of the quiver really is, like, making sure you don't have that overlap in there. And while I do have a little bit, like, I mean, my Amplid Pillow Talk to my interior plane project, Honolulu, is those are night and day. And then you look at the Cool Bean, and that's completely different. And my split board, I mean, it's a split board,
right?
So you look at all that stuff, and it's so different. And what I'm looking at getting to fill some voids for next year, it's like even those, while there might be mild overlap, it's not even much because they're going to be so different. Like that Dinosaurs Will Die Brewster, that will be it will be my do everything jack of all trades boards. It's got a powder pack insert pack so you can set it back. It's mild camber, so I can still get pop, but I can still press it, slide a rail, I can do everything. It's kind of like the Clovis where it's twin non-symmetrical in there, and then if I pick up a Rome Blackjack, I might even go smaller than the 53 because I think there's a 50 in that or something like that.
That makes sense, going from 50 to 53.
Yeah, so there's something like that. I don't know off the top of my head right now. But if I go to something like that, it's going to be that little skateboardy style board for preseason, postseason when I just want to go slush, because there's days like, yeah, I might go jump off a 10-foot cornice, but I can do that on a 150. I can do that on a 53, and skate around. But
go faster and lean back.
Yeah, well, yeah. Unless you're riding with Bruce, our ad sales guy. Then it's put all your weight forward and go as fast as possible, and then pray your knee doesn't buckle. Yeah, he's scary.
Or Dylan, who sends it to the moon all the time.
Yes, we're going to get Dylan, my roommate, who's a pro snowboarder, on so we can ask him about the hashtag sending it for the boys.
Sending it for the boys.
Because that kid, the last powder day I rode with him at Copper, we were coming through a little bit of a mogul field because there's this one mogul you can hit and backflip and really lay it out. Well, they had it bambooed off, so he went around it and hit it, landed in the mogul field. He snapped the nose of his Rossi XV and rode the damn thing. I mean, it completely buckled. The board's dead. Yeah, sending it for the boys, but I mean, were you there at my birthday?
Oh yeah,
when he
Beaver
hit the
Creek?
when he hit the cat track.
Sent it freaking 20 feet further than any of us were.
Yeah, he's probably sent it a solid 50 feet into a creek bed, but the best thing was all we heard him scream was Sochi. Comes through the trees at about 60 miles an hour, hits this cat track, frickin' just spins to win, lands nose heavy in this creek bed, comes up the other side, and it's just like, what's up? What's going on?
Totally fine.
Totally fine. Then
we
again,
all thought he was dead.
We all thought he was dead. Then again, this is the kid that at the Open this year spun that 1080 to the knuckle, hit, and did a 360 and rode it out.
Yeah.
Like, he popped up and spun a 360. Like, most people would have sat down.
Yeah, I showed it to a couple of people, and they were like, did you do that on purpose? And I was like, oh, no.
He realized he wasn't making it, but yeah, so when you ride with people like that, you realize that you ride a little different. Like, or Travis the intern, when he comes out, he's way more skate-styled and stuff, and I've been riding with him. I've known him since he was 11, and now that he's 18... and in college and stuff and riding with him, I remember the first time I ever rode powder with him, the kid was dead by 10 in the morning. We started at 8:30. I mean, an hour and a half, and he died. And I was like, yo, man, we got like 2 more hours of this.
Yeah.
And when you go out there, but now he's fun to ride with, and he's figured out he's got powder legs underneath him and stuff, and he's figured out how to ride it. But his whole style is very surfy skate style. Like, you're going to pop, you're going to butter, you're going to really press into stuff. And every person that you ride with changes how you ride, so you want to have that quiver. Like, I know when you and I go out and ride, it's like we just do weird shit. I've realized that. Like,
much.
We'll be like, oh, we're gonna go surf. Oh, well, let's go to the park and surf. And we're the guys that are carving around the bigger jibs, but park carves. But we're also the guys that are like, hey, there's a transition on the side of this jump. I bet you I can back 180 into the landing of this thing, and you do that. And that's also, I think, part of the key of having a good quiver is knowing who you ride with and what you need. When I lived in Washington, I rode, my Powerboard was a 166 cambered directional K2 with a huge setback on it. That was my Powerboard.
Right.
And that's what I rode with my guys up there. And then when I moved to Steamboat, my Powerboard was only like I think it was like a 160 Never Summer. I mean, they were still doing camber dominant stuff back then. They hadn't invented RC tech yet, but I was doing that. And you see that, but when you and I started riding, I mean, yeah, you were riding park boards. I was riding a lot of park boards.
Yeah, when I moved out to California to work with Signal, the biggest deck I had owned at that point was a 54, and I didn't ride it very much. And it was mainly my POW deck, and it was the first year that the Capita Indoor had their flat kick camera profile.
Oh, wow.
And then when I came back from California back to Colorado, my biggest board was a 51, and that was my POW deck because it was a little bit directional.
A little bit directional.
Yeah, it was the OG. It was the special makeup that I had made when I was there. And then the next POW deck I owned was a Rush.
Oh,
it was rocker.
Yeah.
And it was actually a decent POW deck, but a twin.
Yeah.
And now I've gotten to a point where I've got three. I've got three, sort of, 4-ish. Well, I don't know if you really count the Z-Twin and the Clovis as twins. They're twin-ish.
The Z-Twin is a true twin, contact point to contact point.
So is the Clovis.
Yeah.
So I guess you count those as twins. So at that point I have 4, but 2 of those are non-symmetrical.
Non-symmetrical
yes,
twins.
But I've got the Helix, which is an ASIM twin, and then I have my Ether. And that's it. Everything else I have in my lineup is not even directional twin. They're full directional.
Full directional.
And that's all I own. And now my biggest board is a 60.
Yeah. And I don't... My pick of choice for a powder board is like a 156 of Colorado. If I'm leaving the state and I'm going up to the Northwest or something, I'll bump up to maybe a 60 at the max, but it's probably like a 58, 59. And that's just because my style has changed so much where I'm like, when I lived in Washington, it was like jump off the biggest thing you could and pray to God you fucking landed. You can have a true quiver of one board. They're out there. They do exist. Kevin and I definitely don't always agree on our quivers, but we can debate what's in there and what's not. I mean, personally, he should throw that helix away. Set the damn thing on fucking fire, but that's just me. I hate that thing. Looking at you, Jim. I'm looking at you at Jim over at Ride. But, anyways, what's in your guys' quiver? What are you guys doing out there? Let us know, like, what's going on. Like, what you think makes your quiver better for your conditions and stuff like that. We'd love to hear from you.
What do you think about our quivers?
Yeah.
Do you think I need more twins? Do you think Avran needs more directional boards?
That's true. I do need more directional boards. I don't deny that.
I don't need any more twins. I'm fine.
No, you do. Anyways, this has been the Angry Snowboarder Techcast with Kevin Hub and Avran Lefebvre. Thank you for listening in and watching us on the YouTubes. If you got any questions, comments, or topics you think we should discuss, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, keep on shredding, keep on listening, keep on doing shit. And in the next episode, Kevin and I are going to do a giveaway.
Sweet.